Okay, I'm going to go do one more quick thing, and then I'll be back, but I've got you on mute, and if I hear you guys or Margaret jump on, I'll run into the room.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Well, MPI's always had a very strong philosophy around patient safety and education. Actually, our board has always been very supportive of the risk management program. So we've always had an education program put together. It's just finding the right partner. So I think the biggest thing for me was we were using a different online vendor when I took over for the person who did risk for the company when he retired. And that organization was good to work with, don't get me wrong, but they just weren't, the Sullivan Group. I had worked with the Sullivan Group before, knew the quality of the education, and wanted to move to a more kind of a more accelerated, more mature platform for online learning. And the Sullivan Group really fit that. So, you know, and I know, Jennifer, I know you'll do your best to figure out how to integrate all of what I tell you, but, you know, honestly, it's relationships. For me, you know, I've worked with Karen and I've worked with Jen Hurley for a long time, who I knew, you know, had worked with you guys for a while too. And then I had my own experience working at another MPL company with the Sullivan Group. Used the Sullivan Group for a collaborative that I had done on ED. And that just worked out so well that when you guys started to expand what you offered beyond just emergency medicine, it was a natural progression that I was super happy with what I was able to do with you guys, the flexibility, and, Karen, to your credit, anytime I have something weird or a client who's a little bit more difficult to work with, you guys find a way to accommodate that. And it's that kind of flexibility and ease to work with that just made it a no-brainer to just move everything over and have one platform that could deliver lots of different education rather than just the ED, which is where originally I got hooked up with you guys. And it's, a level of excellence. You guys were the top in ED, you still are. And as you've added other components of education in, I can only expect the same highest of level, and I do see that. And, what I hear from our clients, what Karen sends me when, we get some good testimonials back from the clients, so that just kind of solidifies that the move was a good move. I think we can always do better on pricing, so, I push you on that one, Karen.
Thank you.
Great. Well, with that in mind, then let's move on to some of the questions. I'm just putting these in front of us so you can look at them as well as what you sent initially. So what advice would you give a healthcare organization, who wants to move from a reactive to proactive plan? So maybe you can just provide a little bit of context and discussion around what you emailed over.
Oh, yeah. So there are a couple of things in my head when I think about this. They're actual clients who I see in a proactive mode and those who I see are struggling and can't actually get there. So my answer is really based on what I'm seeing. And part of that, too, is, of course, what I see on a larger national basis with all that I'm exposed to. Having the right culture and the right staff and staffing in place is crucial to an organization's ability to move out of just putting out fires to really looking at programs and moving into that more ERM model and putting some proactive strategies in place around their risk. And it still surprises me, and I guess it probably shouldn't. Maybe I kind of live a little bit sheltered sometimes because of all the exposure that I have to education and really leading cutting-edge organizations that, have been working on their culture and putting a just culture in place and have done that, that when I come across an organization that's just not there, it does have a surprise for me. But I don't think it should be. I think we still have a lot more facilities struggling with putting a culture, a just culture in place with the risk management plan than I think we all probably realize. And those are the we alls who are reading the Sullivan Group's newsletters, or H&H, the hospital and healthcare newsletters, into that stuff that comes through, where we really think we're making a lot of progress, and in truth we are. It's just there are still those behind that really need to catch up. And the biggest issue for me that I'm seeing with those who need to catch up, they either don't have the leadership in place in their risk management program that really embraces patient safety and the proactive mode, or they just don't have the staffing and the bandwidth to do it. So, and culture, a just culture comes from that leader in the risk position, as well as the entire C-suite leadership. So if you don't have a risk manager who is on the forefront of the patient safety movement and connected and learning about proactive patient safety, they're not going to be able to influence C-suite to get behind that kind of a movement. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And thanks for mentioning just culture. So you mentioned there that you said they need to have the right culture and the right staffing in place. Can you talk a little bit more about what the right culture and the right staffing would be?
Well, the right culture is a culture that embraces patient safety and isn't afraid to report. So it's, it's still working on that insidious intimidation, which, ASHRM has done quite a bit of work on white papers around that. We think we've come so far in that, and yet I'm still seeing it. And, if staff are afraid of retribution in reporting, then you don't have a just culture. And our risk management program will not really be able to successfully move from that reactive into a proactive mode if you can't encourage people to report, to get excited about patient safety. And, the just culture piece really is around that, having the right environment and support behind people of, if you do make an error and it's not criminal activity, people make mistakes, we know that, and the organization isn't one that moves to fire someone, which we still have organizations that do that, the not moving to the firing someone is the just culture. It's actually looking at, is there a systems issue rather than is it a human being who owns this? Sometimes it does. I mean, the whole accountability piece has to be in there. So I mean, it's embracing a just culture philosophy around your reporting of events, your risk management plan, having risk managers out on the floors talking to people, so that the only time that, people on the floor, when they see a risk manager, the only time that they see them is because something's gone wrong. That's not the influencer role that we would want for our risk management and patient safety leaders. The other piece you asked me about was staffing. Staffing is a bigger challenge depending on the size of your organization. If you're a very large hospital, you usually can attract highly talented, well-skilled individuals to come into your risk department. And I think that the smaller hospitals have a much bigger struggle with that, and what I hear most frequently, even in my own experience, is that the smaller hospitals have risk managers who wear multiple hats. And wearing multiple hats, you're conflicting your ability to focus on any one area. So spread too thin, not enough resources. And then the other component on that, too, that I'm seeing is just the challenge overall of finding seasoned risk professionals, or even not even seasoned, I mean just risk individuals who you can teach up to fill some of the vacancies that we're seeing. And I'm not sure really what that's attributable other than the graying of society. We're losing a lot of our risk staff to retirement.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Well, that's a great overview.
So that's part of it. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, no, you're fine. Let's move here to the role you feel that patient safety education plays in the business and the value it brings for folks.
The role that patient safety plays in my business?
So as far as how you offer, yes, you offer the education to your folks. What kind of value do you feel that brings? What kind of feedback do you get because you're bringing that education to the table?
Well, the type of education that you bring to insureds not only helps to differentiate you in a very competitive market, being in the MPL insurance market. So, you know, it's not just for me, but it would be for all MPL insurance companies. Anything that you can do to set yourself apart with the services that you provide and to ensure that they're of high value to those who are sitting and learning, that within itself is the role that education plays. The kind of value that education brought to your organization. Well, you know, it's hard to measure the value that loss prevention education plays, but I will tell you that anyone who's in this field will feel that the education that we provide does minimize risk, so increases patient safety, minimizes risk, and helps us in defense of litigation if it occurs. Those are our three goals when we provide education. Not in that order necessarily, but of equal value across all three areas.
Great. So you talked a little bit about successful ERM programs and this idea of being proactive, moving toward an enterprise risk management. What are some of the habits that you've seen that make some of these organizations successful in this area?
Well, a lot of it really is around communication. So, you know, it goes back to the communication and the staffing piece too, of having the resources to put yourself out there as a value to your organization when they're considering contracts to provide services, building construction. You know, a lot of times the risk manager is the last person to know. I hear that. And that should never happen if you really have been able to get your organization to embrace an ERM model. Then any type of risk that comes to the organization goes through the risk management department for consideration as to how it impacts other aspects of the business, rather than just risk being just about either loss control or risk and patient safety being just about loss control and patient safety. So it's really broadening the role of the risk manager into looking at all risks company-wide. So I guess when you talk about the habits, so the habits would be to be visible. The risk manager and the risk department need to be visible to the organization. The leaders in the organization by department need to understand that any new endeavor, contract, construction, whatever, really does need to funnel through the risk department. So successful risk departments are not isolated to just loss control or just patient safety. I guess those are the types of habits that I would see where there is success.
Great. So we've talked about this a little here with the education program, and how you've measured success with your current education program. But if you could just chat a little bit more about maybe even the topics that you see folks really centered around, and what are people looking for at this point, and you know, how are they determining success as they focus on those initiatives?
How do they determine success if they focus on what I choose for them?
Well, so
because, you know, Karen really knows how to do it. Sorry, go ahead.
You're fine, Margaret. Go ahead.
Did you want to say something? Go ahead. Oh, yeah, we do. So one of the things that Karen is really aware of that I do a lot of data analysis and sifting through what we're seeing on a local basis as well as what's going on a national basis around trends either in the patient safety realm or in the claims loss area, changes in scope of practice, and try to look at what are clients asking me for, so interview as well, when I select what programs we're going to offer. So I don't typically use the Sullivan Group like maybe some of your other clients do, which is just let them go at it and let them pick what they want. I don't do that. Our clients find that difficult. They don't want to have to make their own decision. They want me, and they trust me, to choose for them what education they believe that I think they need. Maybe a little paternalistic view. I hope that doesn't come out sounding that way when you write this up, but they want it easy. They want it simple. And I spend a lot of time making sure that I pick for them what I feel is most appropriate. Karen knows we've kind of done a little bit of switch this year in looking at, can we look at specialty specific, because it does change by specialty what they might need and what they're grappling with from both loss control and patient safety perspectives. So how I know that that's successful for them, or let's see, what did you say that they measure success? Well, we measure success in the fact that I have good feedback that comes back, which I do frequently, that the program that they took to the Sullivan Group was great, was easy for them to get through. So there are a few components. High quality education, it's what I need right now, and it was easy for me to do, and I can do it when I want to. Those are the 4 core components that I measure success on. Mm-hmm. And I think the 5th one that you guys actually see is a return to the Sullivan Group. So if I have 80 doctors who have done the Sullivan Group, those 80 are going to do the Sullivan Group again. Right. That in itself tells me that they're really happy with the platform. So, okay?
Great. So just to confirm what you're saying, I don't think it's paternalistic at all. We actually hear frequently in calls with other organizations, they want to know what courses other organizations are choosing. So they're always looking for that feedback. So I think it's wonderful that you're providing that for them. So in that vein, what kinds of things, what kinds of trends are you hearing from folks that you work with now that they're really focusing in on? And what are you recommending in terms of, let's put focus here for 2017?
Oh, Karen, you can help me with that. You know what I picked for our physician programs.
Yeah, sure. So, well, we're just about to break it into a whole bunch of new categories, but basically, I can email you the whole curriculum, but basically there's going to be orthopedics, an OB, an ED, and a surgery specialty-specific course curriculum for those groups. So I guess to save time on the call, would you like me to just put that curriculum?
Yes, that would be great if you could email that over. And then, Margaret, any particular commentary around why you're choosing the areas you're choosing and what you're hearing there as far as why you're headed in that direction?
Well, those, OB, ED, and surgery are, of course, always our highest risk, highest lost areas. So you do spend more time on areas where you have the highest potential impact. So that's what we've done. It's based also on specific feedback that I've gotten from providers in those groups that, you know, while the general education is great, I'd really like something that was focused on me. So that's what I'm doing. I listen to my clients, and I try to make sure that we can meet what they want. So make it simple for me. Tell me what you want me to take and make it pertain to my specialty, if you can. You can't make it pertain to everybody's specialty. So that's just too much, to be honest with you, for an organization my size. So you do have to do some type of a scaling. So you scale to what are our biggest loss areas, and Karen can speak to that as well as I can, ED, OB, and surgery. Those are the biggest loss areas for patient safety and loss control across the world. So the orthopedics piece for us is a little different. That's specific to MPI. We have quite a few orthopedic groups, and orthopedics are a large player in our insured world. So we're doing things that are dedicated to that specialty because they have a larger presence to us.
Sure.
The other area, too, that we're really seeing across the board is advanced practice professionals. I think you'll see that in what Karen sends you. There just needs to be a whole lot more education around that, and that, again, is from all of the different aspects that I told you that I look at, which is the potential for claims. We just had a House bill that has passed, so there's a new law around how PAs can practice in this state, giving them more leeway, which in turn has the potential for more liability for the physicians whose policies they're on or has an employment relationship. So the physicians question a lot around, what should I be doing with my APPs? What's the right thing for me to do? So I will frequently look for that type of education. And it's not education in a vacuum. So what the Sullivan Group provides for me in an online format is one piece of a puzzle that's much larger that I offer for our insureds. So we'll also do an article in a newsletter, or we might do a live presentation, so that I can be sure that whatever modality you learn best as I can get you the education that you need when it's a critical topic. And APP practice is one of those right now.
Great. Okay, thanks for that insight. So when you're talking to each of these organizations in these different areas, they're saying, you know, we want to specialize in orthopedics, or we have high risk in, you know, in these top 3 areas. How have you seen them best engage their clinicians to stay motivated and engaged in the education programs?
Well, from that perspective, so if you're talking about how can organizations encourage their clinicians, I think your question is actually based on organizations, meaning hospitals or large medical groups. So for me to answer that question, I would have to tell you that if they have an insurer, that the best way to do that is to partner with your insurer. And one of our very largest clients does that. They partner with us to provide this education. And this education is something that, you know, we put together. We do all of the partnering with the client to send the messages out for their clinicians to attend the education. The other piece to that as well is partnering with your MPL company can also provide the benefit of a premium reduction. so we also offer premium reduction if you successfully complete risk management education, and we make it as easy as possible. So it's really that partnership if you have it. Now, if you don't have an MPL company or a third-party administrator that helps you do that, then probably those organizations, the encouragement probably comes out of a contracted relationship on behavioral expectations, which we do have a component of that with one of our clients who feels very highly about our expectation of you is that you do participate in risk reduction education at least annually, and they put that into their OPPEs, which are performance criteria for their clinicians. So, you know, I can't say that it's encouragement. The premium discount is encouragement that we have as an MPL company, but as an organization who is an employer, it becomes a behavioral expectation that is actually laid out in contracts or through behavioral expectations in the OPPEs. And that's usually through their med staff offices that those things are coordinated. Yeah.
Great. So let's just wrap up.
Does that help?
Kind of
Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yes, that helps. Well, and we ask because it's one of those questions that we receive from organizations all the time. You know, how do we continue to keep clinicians engaged? And so it's nice to have some additional perspective there. So thank you. All right, so let's wrap up here with
let me add one more thing on that. Let me add just one more thing on that. So organizations ask, how do I keep my clinicians engaged? Okay, so another piece of that is make sure you choose topics they want to hear. That's how you keep them engaged. If you tell them that, well, we think you need to hear this, okay, so I'll have an example for you. And I don't think you should use this because if anybody reads it, they'll know what I'm talking about. So don't use it, but if I have an organization that tells me, so I have an organization who tells me, we want you to put education together on the opioid crisis. Okay, I will do that. But it's not what their clinicians want to hear about. Their clinicians want to hear about something else. Then we're not going to have a level of engagement that we could have had we selected a topic that I polled or asked of clinicians what you really want to hear about. So that's a hard line. So I would just put in there that if you really want to keep your clinicians engaged, then ask them, what do you need to hear about? So one of them was sepsis. Sepsis is not something that's on my radar, at least it wasn't at the time, but for some reason the clinicians they wanted to hear about this. So they were seeing something at the bedside that they were dealing with that I was not actually seeing litigation for or patient safety issues about at the time. So they're much more on the forefront of, God, you know, the sepsis keeps coming up. I'm not really sure what to do with it, you know. So we had a national expert come in and talk to them about sepsis management. That's how you keep your clinicians engaged. And it did have a patient safety component and risk management component because those claims are high. So that's that. I would just add that on to that, and don't use my examples.
No worries, but that's a great
point. It'll be too identifiable.
Okay. All right, so let's wrap up here with just a more high-level question. So you're in touch with several healthcare organizations, you know, having these conversations all the time. What are you hearing from folks as their major concerns and areas of vulnerability moving into this new year?
Oh, God. Well, for the practices, it's survival. How are we going to survive? Are we going to get paid? And are we going to have to join a hospital or a larger medical group? That's the big concern I hear from the independent physician practices.
Mm-hmm.
Then from the hospitals, you know, again, I think it's the same concerns around what's going to happen with payment under the new administration.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of concern around payment. They're already seeing, I think cuts have already occurred now with some of the payment payers. So they're already starting to begin to deal with that. The other big thing that I hear a lot about, probably more from the physician practice side than hospital side, although I think the hospital side might just be a little bit potentially not seeing the risk for it, is cyber threats.
Mm-hmm.
That's become an easy money maker for terrorists and extortionists. And I think that that's only going to increase where there are people who are looking for the opportunity to make easy money. And I do hear that there's concern about that, and there's such a lack of knowledge behind that we just haven't caught up on that. So that's probably going to be one of the biggest push areas for education and desire of more knowledge in the 2017 year.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, not so much.
Sounds good. Well, Margaret, you've been so helpful. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Is there anything we haven't discussed, any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with folks as we, work on this Q&A?
Tell me again what the title of your article is going to be.
I haven't come up with one yet, but really we're trying to focus on risk managers within, hospital organizations. So I think it would be, any piece of advice to a risk manager or risk leadership in an organization.
Yeah. Well, you think I'd have one little tidbit of advice for those poor souls.
Is there, maybe to rephrase it, is there something now, having your years of experience and working through ASHRM and your current role, that maybe you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
Yeah, actually that's probably, thanks for doing that, because that does help it a little bit. The one tidbit of advice is, no matter where you are in the organization, whether you're in a small and rural hospital or you're in a large Trauma One care center, the biggest thing that helps you out is your networking. And that networking really does come through either your local state chapters, risk management chapters, or through the national chapter through ASHRM. It's that networking, it's that building your core group that you can go to when you have questions or when you just need some moral support. That really helps you not only achieve your goals, but really bring change to an organization around patient safety and risk management. And I'm not sure that everybody always taps into the benefits of that, or that their organization even supports them to do that. So I guess that's the one piece of encouragement that I would give, to any risk managers in an organization right now. You don't have to go it alone. Don't try. Build your network, and this is the two places where I know of that you can build that network, your state chapter and your national chapter. And read a lot. You should be connected in with lots of different patient safety, risk management, future, I mean, I know that the AHA puts out a future scan. I swear that is my favorite book every year. I miss it when I don't get it, so that's kind of it.
Those are some great resources. All right, I want to be mindful of your time, but just again, thank you so much for this help today. We're going to go through and summarize everything we talked about. I will have someone on our staff edit it just for, grammar and to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, and then I'll send it over to you to take a look at as well. So before we do any publishing, you can take a look and let us know how you feel about it and make the edits that you wish.
Oh, that would be great. If I see something I actually can do better, this is really hard for me to talk it through. I'm actually much better seeing something and writing that out, so that'll be helpful.
Oh, great. Sounds good. Well, thank you again. Enjoy your week, and look for something from me by the beginning of next week for your review.
Okay, sounds perfect. Thanks, guys. It was good to talk to you.
You too. Great interview. Thank you.
You too. Have a great day, Margaret.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.